light an Advent candle. And Julie's going to come and light the candle for me while I read a little bit about Advent and give her the matches of. She's going to light the middle candle and one candle around the edge. Traditional Christianity celebrates Advent by preparing the soul for the coming of Christ. First, celebrating the birth of Jesus and welcoming Christ into the heart. There are also traditions in many religions to fast and practice forgiveness before a sacred ceremony. In Unity, we embrace and include traditions that have meaning for us, and we also love to create our own ceremonies. So today, let Advent symbolize a spiritual journey of individuals and our congregation. Let us affirm that each one is anointed as the Christ. Let us acknowledge that when we live from the consciousness of love, we light the world. So this week, we light a candle of hope. With hope firmly entrenched within one's heart, all things remain possible. Hope is the belief in the eternal order of all things in heaven and earth. All is well, and from a greater perspective, that which the Creator perceives. The manifestation of miracles is a common occurrence, and all that is required is this quality of love to bring them forth. Those who carry hope within their hearts are those who embody the trust and innocence of the purified soul. One whose trials and tribulations have brought love to the forefront. And at some point, the tide of the wheel of life will flow back in favor of the one, us, as we hold hope in our hearts. So today I'm going to give you my personal wisdom about how to be in peace in the midst of change. So here's what's going to happen. Things are going to change and you are not going to like it. Or maybe you will. Or maybe you won't. But things are going to change. Apparently, our brains like familiarity. Familiar things make us feel safe. Familiar things help humans survive. Familiar things are easier for our brain to process. Frankly, we prefer the shorter path. Given a choice, we want it to be a little easy. On the other hand, new and different things are good for our brains. Learning a new language or a new activity, or traveling to a completely new country and a new culture. Those things are also excellently good for our brain, even though our brain might want to go for the known and the comfort and the easy. At the same time, and everybody knows this, there's a part of you that wants to do the excitement, that find the new thing. And doing something different, learning something different, hanging out with different people is also good for our brain. It helps us adapt. So spiritually, here is an interesting thing. Hanging on to the moment, even the present moment, if you're hanging on to it, it takes you out of oneness consciousness. And if you find that irritating, so do I. It's almost as if you know the answer, and the answer is a confusing Buddhist koan, like, okay, you have to be in the moment, totally be in the moment. But if you start thinking about being in the moment and you really like this moment, bam, you're actually out of the present. It's a little bit of a mystical understanding, being in the moment. So today, I want us all to ask ourselves some really deep questions. Is peace something you want? Do you really want peace? Would you rather be right? I know I often choose that I would rather be right than peace. Or would you rather experience peace? So, do any of you remember the movie Forrest Gump? Okay. There's a beautiful scene where Forrest and Lieutenant Dan are on the shrimp boat. And remember when Lieutenant Dan is strapped to the mast and that storm comes up and it's raging, and Lieutenant Dan is raging at God, like, you call this a storm? He's like being flung apart, and he's, you call this a storm? And he's lashed to the mast. And of course, as we remember, the storm dies down. And as things would have it, that's the only boat that's left. Yeah, and prosperity and shrimp for all. So, what mast are you hanging on to? Are you hanging on to a mast that makes it through the storm of change? This is where I want us to go a little bit deep in our own minds. What are some of the masts that I hang on to? Is Netflix and chill a good mast? Will that, that if the waters seem a little troubled in my life, does Netflix and chill, is that really going to be a mast that's going to take me through all the deep storms? Well, maybe. Is hanging out with my family going to be the mast that goes through the big storm? What are the masts we hang on to? Sometimes my mast is a thought of who I am, a complete mental picture of who I really am, which really is not necessarily who I really am because it's in my head. I am a put together minister. I am a grown up. I'm a good mother. Whatever it is, whatever the thought is, that can be a mast. So I'm going to ask all of you to just do a little exercise with me and close your eyes for a minute. If you're the kind of person who's a process person and you want to write. If you're the kind of person who just wants to meditate and think, just close your eyes and think for a minute. And ask yourself, see if you can come up with a mast that you hang on to when the water gets rough. And that's okay. That's probably enough. This is also a good exercise to do during the week. Find out what we're hanging on to when things get a little bumpy on our journey. I want to give you some masts that have worked for some people. In Unity, every Sunday we say there is only one presence and one power active in my life and in the universe, God the good omnipotent. That's a mast for many people. That's something to hang on to. A Course in Miracles, one of the statements that some people hang on to from there is, God is love and so am I. I've hung on to that one myself. In the New Testament, in Revelation, there is, behold, I make all things new. That's a mast to hang on to also. You probably, each and every one of you, have that kind of a mast, a word that's a group of words that's a prayer or an affirmation that connects you to your source. Now, how can you let go, or how do you recognize the masts that don't work? To be perfectly honest, Netflix and chill might be a habit for me, but it's really not a good mast when something that's really upsetting me comes up, because that is just going to be me ignoring my feelings and distracting myself. It's still a pleasant way to spend an evening, but it's not going to be the mast that gets me through the conversation I don't want to have, or the change I need to face, or that kind of thing. So what is going to help me let go of the masts that don't work? And how can you find out what works? Well, really, it's cook the spaghetti, throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. So, which means experiment. And really, that means spiritual practice. you want to try some spiritual practice. And also a good time to start a spiritual practice, it may be when you're in the middle of a storm. But it's also quite a good time to start a spiritual practice before you go out on the boat. Just because then you'll have it a little bit in you. We're going to do a mini practice because, as far as I'm concerned, there is one spiritual practice that is the magic bullet for everything. It's forgiveness. So let us do a little mini practice because if you're the kind of person who learns by doing, we're going to do a little bit of forgiveness. So the same thing. If you like to write things down, you can do this with the little notepad in the back of the chair and a pen. If you like to process things in your brain, you can process it in your brain. And if you just want to sit and meditate, that is also perfectly awesome. So this is a mini practice. It won't last very long, but it's a little mini forgiveness. All right. So first of all, know that all the spiritual help that each and every one of us needs is here inside of us and all around us. That Pure Source is taking care of us and will help us through all spiritual practice. So ask yourself this question: what do I need to forgive in myself? I'm going to give us like a minute. I'm going to get my phone because I love making the minutes exact. What do I need to forgive in myself? I'm guessing something will pop up in your brain. What else do I need to forgive in myself? All right, so does everybody have at least one thing they want to forget? I'm just going to assume you do. Now, this is the next step. The next step, and this might be the important step, and why it's a good mask to hang on to in a storm. Obviously, this works on people you need to forgive too. But what we're going to do right now is we're going to think of the thing that we wanted to forgive and give ourselves empathy and understanding. And here's what I want all of us to consider. Let's say I would like to forgive myself for going unconscious and spending too much time ignoring what is niggling at my mind when I'm going to do that. That's an example. So I'm going to give myself empathy for that by thinking of, well, having a little compassion. Why was I doing that? Why do we do anything? We probably were maybe feeling some pain. We were tired. We didn't know what else to do. We were trying to meet another need. But this is a very important step, having some empathy for yourself. You're a person on the path, trying your best at any one time, and there may be something you want to forgive. But instead of forgiving like, oh, you did that bad thing, I forgive you. What we want to do is, oh, you did that thing. I get it. You were trying to make it better in some way. You were tired, or you were hungry, or you didn't know if you could face what you had to do the next day. So you just wanted to forget all about it. Whatever you want to forgive yourself for. And have some love. So in order to practice love, what I want us all to do is imagine that there's the cutest puppy you've ever seen right here, and the puppy has just pooped on the stage. But you are going to forgive the puppy because it's so cute and it's just a puppy, right? So somebody comes in and cleans it up, and they're not going to take the puppy and slap it on the nose or anything. They're just going to say, "Aw, that's okay. You were learning. It'll be better next time." So all those feelings of forgiveness to the puppy, you know what I'm going to tell you to yourself. As much love and understanding as you can have for the cutest puppy in the world, I want you to have in your own heart for you. You're just a puppy. You're just a puppy soul. Because I don't see any of us walking on water yet. So really, we're all just puppy souls doing the best we can. Sometimes we poop on the stage. So we do the empathy. The next step is ask for help and letting it go. Oh, whoever you ask for spiritual help for, do you ask Jesus? Do you ask the Christ? Do you ask all that is? Do you ask your grandma who's in heaven? Do you ask all the angels? Do you ask all the spiritual support? I'd like to say all the spiritual support that is available to me right now, because I think that covers everything. All the spiritual support. All that is oneness, Buddha. Ask right now, because we're practicing this. We're throwing the spaghetti on the wall. So right now, ask for help letting it go. Spirit, all of us here, I'm going to voice our thoughts. We are asking for spiritual support to let it go. And we know that in asking, we are going to receive this. Now, next step, just plain let it go. We've had help, and we're going to let it go. And what we're going to do is, even if it doesn't feel let go, we're actually going to drop it for the moment. Like, we're not going to keep dwelling on it. It's like, okay, that's gone for now. I'm letting it go. That thing that I had to forgive myself for, bam, it's gone. And then, well, I'm going to say, behold, I make all things new. That's one of the masks that I've been using lately. And to say, God is love, and so am I. There's only one presence and one power active in my life and in the universe, God, the good, omnipotent. And I'm going to rest. And that's going to, that spiritual practice is actually going to build a mast for me. I'm going to be building the mast that I'm going to hang on to in the rough waters that are ahead. Let's talk about change a little bit more. Now, I believe that everybody here knows how uncomfortable sometimes we feel about change. I had a really awesome trip to Colorado. We drove on Monday. We made it just under half. There was 20 minutes of snow. Then we got there before 18 inches happened in Boulder. It was great. I had a wonderful time with our family, the Green Kids, and we got to spend all day Thursday watching somebody else cook, which, you know, how that's just awesome. And then we came back on Friday. And I loved it. And here was the funny thing. But then when I got into my bed Friday night, I was like, oh, I'm so happy to be in my own bed. Isn't that funny? You know, how much our brains, we also love how much I'm happy to be in my own bed. And I also have been noticing, like, there's like, in this community, there's some changes coming up. There's changes. We've talked about me retiring. We've talked about we're changing some of the way we do our leadership and trying to get it community centered. There's always a change in a church, but a big change is when a leader retires. So that's a big change. So I can guarantee you, even if actual Jesus Christ is the next minister, with the Buddha as his assistant, it's going to bother you because you're used to me. It's going to feel uncomfortable no matter who comes in. And if you think it's going to be uncomfortable for you, you should see what's going on in my mind right now. What am I going to be doing instead of this? I've started noticing it that there's this funny kind of clinging. I'm clinging to a mask. Well, maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe I should, uh, maybe I shouldn't give up any of my complete control case. Maybe I should understand I'm clinging to a mask, even if it's just a toothpick of whatever, because that is how change feels. And I have to laugh, even though I also am looking forward to who knows what's going to happen when I have different kind of time to spend and be creative and do what I want and still be connected and still be in community and who knows what. But I do know that the change ruffles me and it kind of goes underground a little bit. I'm not always aware of it. So that's what this little point is about, is that as we change in our community together, we might be feeling plenty of uncomfortable thoughts, and we're not going to feel them like, oh, that's just change. We're going to feel them like, what is she doing? Why did he do that? Why is the tree sitting there without lights? Why is that tree over there when I put it there? Stuff like that. We are going to, because we're human and we're just puppy souls. We're still puppies in the soul level. We're gonna go to that. So my encouragement for all of us, especially me, is to notice when we start to feel a little bit irritated at something different, that it's just our little brain who wants to be comfortable, saying, I want my blanket. I want the pink blanket that I'm used to. I don't like this purple blanket. And remember, spiritually, the spiritual principle behind this is that hanging on to anything, even the moment, takes us out of the moment and takes us into a consciousness of other than oneness, because we want the oneness consciousness. Well, let's ask each and every one, is peace something you want? What mask are you hanging on to? Let's make sure it's the one that makes it through the storm of change. Let's take an offering for unity. I invite